And there, also a look, this is Austin, Texas, and you can see they are seeing rain coming down right now as we speak. So Alberto is a tropical storm and it is moving into Mexico overnight, the center of circulation. But even though the center of the storm is going to be in Mexico, we have been tracking so much rainfall and gusty winds and storm surge, all pushing on shore throughout parts of Texas throughout the day. Today, in fact, you see this big red box on the map. This is currently a brand new tornado watch that came out earlier this evening, and that'll run through the overnight. In fact, a small little box on the map right now that is near Corpus Christi, up near Rockport, Texas, and that is where there is a tornado warning. This watch will run until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning, and this is all associated with Alberto, which formed this morning. It was that potential tropical cyclone 1 that we were tracking all day yesterday and the day before. That's because the National Hurricane Center knew there would be impacts, even though the storm itself would end up moving into Mexico. So they wanted to get that track out and be able to put out tropical storm watches and eventually change those to tropical storm warnings. Here's how much rainfall so far has been picked up. Again, we're based here in Atlanta, so a meteorologist Melissa Noor with 11 Alive News, but we're tracking this storm, the first named storm of the season so far, the latest first named storm that we've seen in about a decade. But rainfall amounts there from Galveston up into Houston have been locally over 4 inches of rainfall. As we go to the south, Corpus Christi into Rockport, Texas, you can see some of those rainfall amounts around 5 inches. And then as we go even further south, some of those rain amounts near Brownsville, Texas have also been in excess of 3 to 4 inches. The center of the storm itself, you can see right here on our map, but all of these bright red colors, these are all of the higher cloud tops, all that convection. This is not what you'd expect from a classical look of a tropical system. When we see these storms becoming hurricanes and major hurricanes, they look much different on satellite and radar presentation than what this particular storm looks like. Alberto, what's unique about it is that its wind field is so massive. The winds right now are sustained at 40 miles per hour, gusts to 50. But this map right here shows you the wind field of Alberto. Notice it is all lopsided to the north, but also this yellow circle on the map is huge. The tropical storm force winds in Alberto extend out 415 miles from the center. There are major hurricanes that we do not see extend nearly this far outside. So even though this storm is very messy on satellite presentation, the gusty winds are extending well outside where the center of that storm is. So that's why the Hurricane Center put out those tropical storm warnings, which are still in effect all the way from up in Galveston, Port Arthur, all the way down into Brownsville, and then again for the coast of Mexico as well. But this storm is going to be making landfall, and as it does, it'll move inland and it will fall apart pretty quickly. So Alberto is the first name of the 2024 Atlantic hurricane season. And ironically, Alberto 30 years ago caused a significant impact here in Georgia. In fact, Americus, Georgia, down in southwest Georgia, had over 27 inches of rainfall, immense amounts of rainfall through the Columbus area down at the southwest Georgia. It's surprising that they didn't end up retiring that name at the time, but that's why we still have Alberto, and this is actually our latest in about a decade that we've seen our first named storm of the season. But we're going to keep going down the list as we head throughout the rest of this hurricane season. Here's the official track. This is the 8 o'clock advisory from the National Hurricane Center. The next advisory will come in at 11 o'clock, and we'll have that on 11 Live News for you. So the storm right now is moving west-southwest now, so the steering currents, even though it was moving due north yesterday, steering currents now have taken it more on a westward track. So this is going to make landfall. And then there's a lot of mountainous terrain in here. So as it moves inland, not only is it cut off from those warm waters of the Gulf of Mexico and Bay of Campeche, but also we are expecting with the mountainous terrain, this thing is really going to get torn apart and teared apart pretty quickly. So a lot of rainfall. That's the biggest threat. In that tropical storm warning, there are also some areas that are along the coast getting a little bit of storm surge, and storm surge is peaking between 2 to 4 feet at its most, and that's near Galveston Bay. Rainfall, you notice we've had a lot of rain today. There still could be some isolated spots that pick up 2 to 4 inches of additional rainfall, but all this is going to be moving inland pretty quickly, and then it's no longer an issue for the coast of Texas by this time tomorrow. So here's the future radar. When I want to point out these wind arrows, this shows the circulation that we're expecting with the surface level winds. This shows you where the center of Alberto is right now. onshore winds with how big this thing is, that has been pushing the water with the curvature of the coast of Texas. And that's why we have so much storm surge, even though this thing is 400 miles to the south. So we have had some not really high storm surge levels, but 1 to 3 feet, some spots over 2 feet of storm surge. And that's been pushing that water on shore with the winds around Alberto, plus the direction of movement. But we see these tropical rain bands continuing to push on shore. So a lot of rain, especially south of Austin and San Antonio. And that rain will keep moving inland overnight tonight, along with that tornado threat. There is that tornado watch again still until 7 o'clock tomorrow morning. As we get into tomorrow at 8 o'clock, you notice all the tropical rain pretty much inland, pushing even into the Midlands up into Texas, and then we'll catch a break at the end of the week. What we're going to watch, though, as we get into the weekend, is potentially another area that could develop here in the Bay of Campeche. There is called the Central American Gyre, which is situated over Central America and Mexico this time of year. And often in the early parts of hurricane season, this can kind of just spin up little tropical lows into the Gulf of Mexico. So this will be another one of those situations as we head into the weekend. We could potentially see another area to watch for development. And this is the latest 8 o'clock kind of big look at the tropics from the National Hurricane Center. You notice this orange circle on the map. That is that area that we'll be watching for potential development this weekend and into early next week. We also have another broad area of low pressure here out in the Atlantic, and that also has a low chance of development. Let me show you this a little bit closer. That one in the Atlantic, it's now 92L is the invest name with that. It has a 30% chance of development over the next 2 days and over the next 7 days. But this one that we'll eventually watch for a little low to spin up there in the Bay of Campeche again, that has a 40% chance of development. So the timeline of that is not in the near term. It's towards the tail end of the weekend and into next week. So that could be another little low, maybe tropical depression that eventually spins up there in the Gulf of Mexico. I showed you that low chance in the tropical Atlantic, right, of development. Well, that actually could play a role in what we're expecting here in Georgia. Even though it's not looking likely that it will develop, this is going to send some more deep moisture in our direction. And this map looks at the moisture in the atmosphere. This is not the dew point at the surface. This is looking at what we call PWATS, or precipitable water in the atmosphere. Right now we have pretty dry air on top of us here in Georgia, but as we head through the weekend, watch how the map colors change. We get into Saturday and Sunday time frame, more of those yellow and orange colors move in. So that's not just a rise in humidity, but moisture available to squeeze out showers and thunderstorms. It's been really dry around here over the last week. So we'll see, regardless of development there, if that can send some tropical moisture in our direction and eventually bring us a few showers and storms here to North Georgia. So again, just kind of recapping Alberto, this is going to make landfall overnight tonight in Mexico, but it is sending a lot of rain, even the threat of some isolated tornadoes. We see that with landfalling tropical systems, and that tornado watch remains in effect there for parts of Texas. We'll kind of back up on these graphics so we can see that again, but that's throughout parts of southeastern Texas, Corpus Christi, Rockport, Brownsville, and you notice there's actually now 3 different tornado warnings that are currently in effect. I'll kind of pinpoint these so you can see. We've got, well, it's actually pinpointing the tornado watch for me here. I don't have the right mode of the radar on here to pinpoint the warnings, but those are in effect right now. So we can often in tropical landfalling systems get weaker, brief tornadoes that do spin up, and that'll be through the overnight hours, that threat, as these tropical rain bands start to move on shore. So just kind of recapping the forecast track, Alberto makes landfall overnight tonight, falls apart pretty quickly, cut off from the warm waters, and also moves over mountainous terrain. So this is storm number 1 of what's expected to be an active hurricane season. And we're just at the very beginning of it. Officially last week, El Nino ended. Now we are in ENSO neutral conditions, and we are expecting a La Nina to develop as we head into the peak of hurricane season. Let me show you more on that. What La Nina does is it suppresses the wind shear in the Atlantic. And when we see wind shear, it kind of tears tropical systems apart. It tears them apart. So it means that we don't often see during El Ninos with more wind shear, we often see a little bit less in the way of hurricane formation in the first place, and we can see less intensification of those storms as well. Tropical timeline for you. peak of hurricane season is September 10th. And this graph shows you how many named storms and hurricanes that we end up seeing as we go through the entire hurricane season. Notice these lines getting much higher and taller as we get into mid-August all the way through the tail end of October. So a lot of hurricane season is to come. Again, NOAA forecasts 17 to 25 named storms, 8 to 13 hurricanes, and several major hurricanes as well. So again, Alberto will make landfall tonight. I'm meteorologist Melissa Noor with 11 Alive here in Atlanta. We'll be tracking this storm, and we get a brand new track coming up at 11 o'clock tonight. I'll have that for you coming up tonight on 11 Alive News at 11.